Welcome back, everyone, to Unbridled and Entitled. This is episode 3. I'm Russ.
I'm Lori. We're thrilled to have you back with us.
We really are. And it's worth a reminder. If you're super fun, spontaneous, you go on trips last minute, the only thing you care about is if there's a mattress and a sunset, you're happy. You might be in the wrong spot.
Totally. However, if you are really concerned about air conditioning in the hotel, making sure you have the quiet hotel room where you're seated on the airplane, and that all the restaurants have an appropriate wine list, then hey, you found the right podcast. And once again, welcome, folks.
You did indeed. In fact, our topic of this week is traveling. Who joins you, traveling with kids, traveling with friends, and how you plan those trips. So it's a lot of fun.
I have the best story about traveling with Russ that I'm using as a teaser right now because we're going to get into it a little bit later in this podcast. But first, Russ, we have this segment that we're calling, Are They Serious? News items that caught our eye and really just made our jaws drop. And the first one, of course, leave it to the Daily Mail. Apparently, a guy, an inventor guy, had an interesting interaction, if you will, with a vacuum cleaner. So this guy decided to invent the Guybrator. Painful, no? I just don't see men using vibrators like that, like a vacuum cleaner, like that.
I totally agree. First of all, wow, good for your husband. I'm just saying the vacuum cleaner was, that's fat, good for you and good for him.
I don't vacuum, so...
Listen, I don't,
you know what?
Get an idea. If you saw the video, God bless. Listen, I have a newfound respect, but I will say this. I don't know if you can call him an inventor. I'm not sure that's an epiphany or, it's definitely, he's on the side of the pool somewhere. I don't know what this guy's doing, but it got me thinking, maybe this is helping men that otherwise can't get there. Men that are faking, the unsung heroes. We're just not getting enough attention. I don't mean we. I said we. Oh my gosh.
Totally
I mean they.
That is so wrong. Look, this is a situation where this guy was like dying to find any excuse to use the term vibrator or guy. Oh my gosh, Freudian slip. Guybrator. Where did my head just go? Right? It's all marketing. It's totally. Low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit.
Oh, it certainly is. So there was another funny article in the Wall Street Journal I saw that said Americans are ditching weekday fun. They only want to have fun on the weekends. And I was wondering if that's more of a post-pandemic thing. What about you, Lori? What do you like to do during the week or on weekends? Like what's fun to do?
Going out till dinner with friends. I like to see the movies, check out a movie. At this age, at this stage, it takes me 5 days to detox from the weekend. So absolutely not. I am one of those lame, if you will, people who does not make it out during the weekdays. Sorry. Yeah. It takes me that long. I go gangbusters on the weekend.
I totally get it. And I would say, look, my kids are older. My youngest is driving, a senior in high school. And so it's much easier. He's out in the wild. He certainly has no problem partying during the week. And I tell him, pal, you still have school. He says, do I? Do I? But super disrespectful, but I totally get it. And for me, I would say by Friday, if someone books something on Friday, look, I'm going to be tired early. After a week of work, I'm going to be tired early for sure.
I know you guys do bail on the weekend plans that we try to make with you guys.
Ouch.
Speaking, can I talk about this recent experience I had with my 16-year-old? So I come in, she's sitting in the family room with a friend watching this movie, Saltburn. It's been all over social media. It's very controversial. There's some really ick moments in it. We don't have to get into that. But although maybe that's my point, because she kicked me upstairs. And of course I was like, no problem. I don't want to, alter your vibe or harsh or chill or whatever. And so I go upstairs. Of course, I turn the movie on right away in the other room. And it is really a disturbing movie. And I'm like, all right. This is making me feel highly uncomfortable. Maybe it's not meant for, middle-aged moms. Maybe this is meant for younger, more cutting-edge thinkers.
I hope not.
But then I was like, all right, I'm supposed to feel uncomfortable. This is the point of the movie. Did you see it, Russ? Did you see Saltburn?
Look, I think when, after the drinking from the bathtub scene, I shut it off. And I don't know what it says that my wife watched the whole thing. It probably doesn't say something good, but I thought I thought it was disturbing. And, I don't want to see a movie to feel uncomfortable. I feel
Right.
uncomfortable enough, every day, every week.
Well, back in the day, right, movies made you feel good. You walked out feeling inspired. You felt like you got a break from life. And I don't know, these days, a lot of movies, probably with the exception of Barbie, although I guess you could argue if you're a guy, maybe that one's going to make you feel uncomfortable. But, the whole message of this movie is gluttony and how much is enough, and everybody is greedy and jealous and all. I mean, anyway, and my 16-year-old is watching this, but this is what's out there these days. I can't tell if I'm just kind of middle-aged, a little stodgy, a little prude. But then again, did you notice the Oscar nominations came out recently, and Saltburn really wasn't acknowledged.
Look, I think Saltburn was trying to be super artsy. It's not that I didn't understand the themes. I did. I think there were less aggressive, less nasty ways of getting those themes across, in my opinion. But yeah, again, maybe
shock value.
right. And maybe I'm just not the right audience either. But I would tell you that when I was a kid, I didn't want to watch a movie in front of my parents if there was kissing, let alone some of this really aggressive, perverse stuff going on. I like to do that alone when I'm by myself.
Did you ever used to? You know what that just made me think of? Remember when channels were scrambled? Did you ever put on adult channels and try to check out what was on beneath or behind the scrambling? I don't know, just like
Lori, I'd be watching this like, yes. If I move my head, can I? And that was old school. If you saw, I try to see some cleavage. If maybe I move my head the right way. I mean, it was a different time. It was a different time.
Oh, let's talk about our show topic. Let's move it along to traveling, vacations.
Absolutely. Well, I love going on vacations, as does, I'm sure, everybody. But it's really a question for me of how do you plan a vacation when you have kids coming? Is it for them? Is it for you? Do you plan something for everyone? Who does it? Do you do the planning in your family?
Well, first of all, let's get one thing clear. When I'm traveling with my kids, it's not a vacation. Right. It's a trip.
Family trip. Sure.
A family trip.
Totally.
We kind of go around the horn. I had a big birthday this year, so I said, I want to do this trip. And it was a tour trip, a historical trip. And I dragged my kids and I said, all I want for my birthday, and by the way, they're 16 and 14. I said, all I want is for you guys to show up, have a good attitude, be open-minded. And then the next trip we can do what you guys want. But you know what the sad state of affairs is? We don't have as much time to go away as a family between activities and sports and school, first and foremost, of course. So really, if you have younger kids, take advantage of the time with them, right?
I'm amazed that your kids were willing to, and your husband, to say, yes, this entire trip we'll do what you want with a good attitude. And next trip will be...
Well, they didn't have to shop for me. That's why. Okay. They didn't have to put in any other effort. I mean, I still planned the entire trip, booked it, dealt with all of the hiccups and snafus, and they just had to keep their mouths freaking shut. That's it. That's easy.
I listen. I mean, maybe it tells you a little bit about who my wife and I are, mostly me. But my kids have trouble keeping their mouths shut. But I hear you. I hear you. And when I plan family trips, I theoretically am planning it so that each day someone's enjoying this part, someone's enjoying that part. My son likes this, my daughter likes that. But probably the reality is, I say that as if I'm this really nice guy, but mostly I'm planning it to make sure I enjoy it.
So what about when you're planning a trip with friends? Because I alluded to this at the top of the show, because we've gone on a couple of trips as couples and other friends have come along. And let me tell you, we love it when you plan trips because you spend hours, Russ, doing all the research. You iron out all the snafus, you book everything. And then you don't mind at all when the rest of us just snicker in the background and talk behind your back and complain. Is he crazy? This is a 40-mile bike ride. He's out of his mind. We're not doing this.
Totally. Listen, I'll say that, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt who said it's not the critics who count. But I say critics everywhere disagree. I get it.
Sport, we put you through. We put you through it, and we are like just unapologetic in the criticism. But nobody else in our friend group really steps up and wants to. Well, there are a couple of people who do a little bit, but I know recently you were just sort of crowned captain, head counselor of hopefully what will be a next vacation of friends.
I totally, I love it. And what we've done often is have let's call it one representative from each couple or each family, and everyone's jockeying. But I will say that when you're booking those kind of trips, the fun part is being together. And so hopefully everyone's willing to compromise a little bit on where they stay or what they do within reason. No one wants to, take the time and the dollars to go on a trip that they don't enjoy, but a little bit of compromise is worth it, because on the trips we've been on together, those dinners with bottles of wine and laughter is magical. And that's the best part.
That took me 5 days to detox from, but actually, so here's an interesting question. So what do you do if in the planning stages of a trip, you're just on a totally different wavelength than friends? I mean, let's start with the first thing. Like, what if you just don't want to travel with these people? And I'm sure I have been the person who's tried to glom onto a trip, and I have been graciously said, thanks, but no thanks. Turned away.
I assume we all have been in that situation. Look, I think if you don't want to travel with someone who suggests travel, that's tough. That is tough. And, it's sort of like, it's like anything else. There are people, I joke with my wife, there are people in our dinner rotation. And I'm like, I think we see them, we see them too often. I don't enjoy dinner with them enough for the obligatory dinner to be, every, 4 to 6 weeks. Like that's a lot. And then here's who I really want to prioritize. And it's not even about, look, when you get to be our age, it's not about this person's a good person, bad person. They're all good people, but you have limited time and you want to spend it with people that give you that positive feeling that you have a great time. That for me, that's
dinner rotation. I'm still fixated on that phrase, dinner rotation. How many friends do you have?
It's nothing organized. That's hilarious. I just mean, I don't have a written down rotation.
More importantly, what's my ranking in the dinner rotation?
You're very high up there. There's no limit.
Top 5.
Of course. There's no limit. It's more like, that did sound hilarious, and I'm glad you called me on it, lest people think there's nothing. It's simply that you can probably relate to this. Some people you'll have a dinner with and you're like, listen, I whether it's an obligation or you enjoy their company somewhat, and yes, and I'll do that, 6 months from now we can see them again, but they're not the folks that you want to see on a weekly or monthly basis. And then there's all these folks that are very hard to see. It's hard to coordinate with. We're all busy. And you say, listen, I haven't seen these 3 people in a while. I really want to see them. These other people might just be really good at reaching back out. Hey, are you free on Saturday? How about next Saturday? How about 2 Saturdays from now? So I only mean informally, as you get older, you want to be deliberate.
His dance card.
Oh my God. I'm sorry I brought it up.
Taking applications.
Oh no, not at all.
Okay, let's move it.
Please.
Once you're on the trip, okay, let's say you've made this plan, you've gotten on the plane, you've arrived at your location, you're a day or 2 into your group trip, right? And people are not like me and being polite by bitching and moaning behind your back, but actually complaining to your face and saying, no, I want to change the plan. How do you handle that?
It is, changing plans is tough. And I would say with groups, part of the reason, if I'm in the planning group, and I often am, part of the deal is, listen, we need to coordinate. Everyone needs to be on board. Is everyone on board with the big picture? What we're doing, for these 5 days or these 2 days? Does everyone want to sit on the beach more? And let's talk about that and compromise up front. I like active vacations because it's pretty tough to change it on the fly. Maybe just at my age.
I just think it's downright selfish. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think if you agreed to come on a trip, someone made the plans. I mean, I will definitely go. I won't blow up the plan or the itinerary. I'll just complain about it while I'm underway, which I think is very different than trying to say, no, we're going to do something totally different and then just cause all of this conflict.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And your complaining is good spirited, and I think everyone's having fun. Like, look, that's what we're all complaining, right? The joke is, whoever chose this dinner spot, I always joke, I'm like, well, then you're just totally responsible for my evening. The reality is, who knows? And so I think that's totally appropriate.
Do you remember when Mike, my husband, went rogue on a trip? It was a hiking trip, and he literally wanted to take the long road, and it was the last day of the trip. We were all pretty tired. We just wanted to go and get a feeling of the surroundings. And he was like, no, I'm going on this route. And everybody went, and I certainly didn't want to go on the long route. And everybody kind of looked at me. And then you sort of said to me outside, he's like, oh, are you so pissed at Mike? I'm like, nope, they can all be pissed at Mike. But then, to my darling husband's credit, he beat us anyway.
It was hilarious when he did it. I was concerned. In this particular case, and not often, but in this particular case, I was easygoing about it. I wasn't so worked up about it, just for these specific circumstances. But it seemed like there was some concern, and I was worried he was going to come in late. But he went on this longer hike, but he really went for it, went quickly, and beat us there, and it worked out fine. But I remember seeing him, really jogging, and it was great. It was adorable.
Well, anyway, I'm just grateful that you and Lisa and our extended friends who were on the trip held it against him. So, but it worked out well. And that was a trip of a lifetime. That was my 50th birthday trip. So I really have to thank you guys for coming along on that.
That was spectacular. Awesome. The joke was we celebrated that birthday, 27 times on the trip. So that was,
we really did. So traveling, yeah, I mean, we're so fortunate, right, that we get to take some time off work and school and get to explore and do trips, whether they're overseas or in the backyard. And, I guess the takeaway, right, is there's no one answer to the right way to do things. Just got to stay open-minded. Bless you.
I don't know if that'll work. Thank you. You have to stay open-minded. I agree. And just one other thing I want to bounce off you. I don't know if you're traveling with family or kids. And of course, there's a whole different dynamic. And the two things I think are funny are one, when traveling with kids, I recently went on a trip overseas where I made my kids sit in the back of the plane when Lisa and I were in the front of the plane.
Oh.
And yeah. And I'm curious, your thoughts on that, either good parenting or atrocious parenting.
You only do that when you have smaller kids and the nanny, and you can put them in the back of the plane. But your kids are grown. That was harsh.
Yeah, it was harsh.
Nice.
Okay. Well, my view was the first time I'm going to this, exotic international location, I'm, 51.
And they're tall. Your kids are tall too. And you made them squeeze in there for 12 hours. Nice.
At 17
Did you
or
even
19.
offer to swap?
So I will say two things. Number one is the flight was 17 and a half hours.
Oh, it's even longer.
And one of the longest flights. And because my good wife made me, we did give them a nap up front, let's say. But anyway, that was a funny dynamic, and I couldn't decide if I honestly, in my own head, I'm not sure it was a good, good decision, bad decision. I was grappling with it. In my own bank account, I think it was a good decision.
Right.
But there's that, and then that's all. It's fun. All these decisions you make when traveling. Hopefully, you make the most of it.
I always sit between, my daughters are 2 years apart, and they used to bicker all the time. So I would sit between them in the middle seat and coach. Do you know that fast forward, again, they're 16, 14. I still sit between them in the middle seat, and Mike will sit somewhere else on the plane. We don't really care. And then they hold my hand. I know this is so sweet, but this is one of those rare moments, one of these little traditions that we have when we do fly together. They like to fly with me in the middle. So I hope that never changes. It's worth sitting in the tight seats.
That is adorable and fantastic. I can understand why you love that. And it reminds me of one thing. If you're willing to share this, you shared with me once how it works when you pack to a trip and you try to tell your kids to pack and your husband to pack, and how crazy it is on packing for a trip. If you're willing to share it, I think it was
if you can help me remember a little bit. So my 16-year-old daughter just brings hair tools, the curling iron, the hair dryer, all the gels, and all the products from Sephora. My younger daughter in the bar bat mitzvah cycle brings nothing but mitzvah shirts. I'm not even sure if she brings bottoms. Forget about the climate. My husband, Mike, just straps whether we're going to the beach or the mountain. He's a big sports guy, as I talked about his insane hiking. And we were basically too slow for him. And so he went rogue. So he just straps the surfboard on the roof or the skis on the roof of the car. And me, like I said, I just am desperate to hang on to my last shreds of sanity. So that's it. That's packing for a family vacation, Rothman style.
Totally. I get it. Oh my God. I can commiserate. Well, look, that was great. I really, I always enjoy chatting about it, and it always brings up funny situations when you're talking about travel.
I hope we can do it more. I really do.
Yes, me too. Me too. Because the time is the most precious thing, and the spending time with quality people who are like top of your rotation list, like you are.
Will you give me notice when I'm about to be downgraded?
You will not be. I will, but I'm not worried about it. Well, look, thank you very much for spending this time together. This was great.
This was a lot of fun, gang. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it, and look out for next time on Unbridled and Entitled.